But I had 3 commissioners walk up to me, and he goes, Commissioner, why do you pray like that? I go, well, what do you want me to pray? Well, you know, there's not everyone in here is not a Christian. I go, I understand. And I said, everyone in here is not a Muslim. Everyone in here is not Jewish. Everyone in here, I go, and that's fine. And I said, if somebody would have got up and offered that, I said, I'd have respected it and done it as well. I said, but, you know, it just tickled me, though. That's the world we live in. Isn't it?
I didn't know that part of it. They thought I knew about it.
How are you?
I think since you guys were talking about the moratorium, we haven't had anybody say they're interested. That's why I wanted you guys to do that. Let me say you pray.
And I asked her if she remember your wife, and she said yes. She said, let me tell you how I remember her.
She said, yeah, you can't say that. At the end, they said, well, I can't say that.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
exactly
say
right.
the names.
It's real
the names
simple.
of
Okay,
them.
I'm just going to your head.
Yeah.
They said, well, no, yeah.
Appreciate you letting me know that.
We'd love to see her.
Okay, I will tell her.
That's the only name I know how to.
Oh, she's busy.
I know how to find.
That's it.
She's come over several times and ministered in the past.
When
She
you
has
have
something.
dress code today.
You know, that's when I get there, but I don't get
I
on.
meant to say it's no time July.
No,
Is
man.
that 5 laps or 10?
7.
7
They
laps.
split it up on it.
I think that's.
No time July. Come on.
Tighten up, man.
Yeah, but you didn't send us a memo.
I seen you, and I meant to say it and got sidetracked.
Miss Bird, don't speak.
I'm sorry, no, I was in another conversation. My mother-in-law said, did you see the little man and his wife? I said, I haven't saw him yet. That's how she identified you. No, she just wanted to see if I saw you. She was being real nice about it. Don't jump on it. Don't jump around. Jump on it. My mother-in-law. I gotta take up for it.
She was here a minute ago.
Yeah, I went upstairs, said she'll be right back.
Don't start without me, I think is what I heard her say. Did you have the boat ride do yesterday?
Really well.
You got an airboat or a big boat?
Took him in the big boat.
Smart.
Yeah, I saw you hooked up.
Mr. Lau?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Go down the roll. Okay. Okay. You give them out, you take them out in the middle or go?
Yeah, I took them out to the water tower, and then I wanted them to see the expanse of the lake, and then I took them down to 2 completed projects and let them see,
Yeah.
you know, not just what Coffer Dam was like, but what the actual project. And the lady from Wink TV, they were comical because they got up. The lady and her cameraman were actually pretty cool, but the guy from FGCU, from WGCU, Public Media,
Yeah.
Quincy Carter, he says, well, he asked Congressman Diaz-Balart, he said, what are you guys doing about this back pumping issue? And it's funny because I've learned to calm down a little bit. Like, you don't back pump, you know, I got to interject, but it wasn't an interview. And, but then I made him on the vote, and I specifically put him to outlaws and everything. And I was like, Quincy, I said, you know, you guys, and the news press, the Naples Daily News, nobody depicts this, correct? And then I showed him the map of the inflows coming in from the northern end of the lake, how hot the water is, or how nutrient laden it is.
Mm-hmm.
Then I showed him, you know, the different assessments of water actually coming off the farm fields, how it's not as nutrient laden. And I said, but that never gets recorded. I said, that never gets stated publicly. You know, and I said, it's dumbfounding to me how this always gets mixed up, you know, in the conversation. Excuse me?
They don't know what sources are.
No, they don't have any desire.
The organizations that place ads in their paper knows.
Yeah.
They are.
That's right. You're right about that.
They're paying a lot of money.
Yeah.
Roe is right.
Yeah. He's spot on. Y'all ready to begin? Mr. Barber?
Hi.
You ready? Okay. We'll call this workshop to order. First portion of the workshop, we're going to be discussing the proposed residential rental housing permit pilot program. Miss Margaret Embledge, are you going to be talking to
I'll
us?
go ahead and defer. You already covered my comments. It was just an introduction. This is a follow-up on some of the other previously board-authorized actions to put together a residential rental inspection program. These are the parameters of that program for discussion and guidance tonight. as well as a follow-up on clarification and flow charting of the code enforcement process to help both enlighten the board, but also to seek direction and input from the board on things that they may see that we could do better within the illustrated process that's set before them. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Embledge to carry you through the rest of the process.
Thank you. For the record, Margaret Embledge, Planning and Community Development Director. As Charles stated, this was a board directive for staff to establish a draft of a residential rental housing permit program, and what we have before you is a proposal, an outline of a proposal for a pilot program that would go for 1 year, and if it's successful, then we would pursue it as a permanent program. What we've outlined here is a program that would we would include the unincorporated area that is generally around Clewiston, south of US 27. And the reason that staff picked that area is partly because of its high density concentration, high visibility, and accessibility, so that we could, it would make it, lack of a better term, easier for staff to get a feel for the success of the program. The other part of this is that we would be going out to the community for announcing the program if the board gives us direction to go forward with this. Prior to finalizing any ordinance, we would propose to go out to not only through advertisements in the newspaper, social media, but we would conduct, what I'm proposing is a couple of community meetings that would allow the community to come in and hear what we're proposing and get educated on what the intent is. We don't want anybody to be surprised. We know that there's always, folks that won't get the information right the first time, so we do want to make it so that it's as transparent as possible. The building and code enforcement folks would implement the program. It would entail requiring a permit and an inspection. The initial permit and inspection, we would look at having those on an annual basis, and renewals, again, would happen on an annual basis. The program that we had looked at with the Clewiston, the proposed Clewiston program, the one that they've drafted that was not adopted yet, in that program they did have a pre-certification, self-certification program as part of their proposal, and that was an approach to, I guess, to address the good actors per se, the good landlords and the properties that don't have issues or hadn't had issues. But it also included additional inspections with change of tenancy and if there were other violations or a change of ownership. And what we thought to simplify the program a little bit more, we just wanted to simply have an annual renewal for the program for everybody. And we're approaching this in that we would be looking at the properties that would not be homestead, and that would be our first indication that they're potentially rental properties, or they're not the primary ownership of the residents. And with the initial list that we received from the property appraiser, it seems pretty daunting. 660 properties qualify as that, but at this point we haven't figured out another criteria to use to start the program. What we would do is we would look to, sending out, as I mentioned earlier, not only, advertisements and community meetings, but we'd be sending letters to those property owners. And if we didn't hear a response from them, we would try again. But the initial letter would be primarily as much of an informational of what the program is and what the process is and so on. It's not one of the typical code enforcement type letters that some folks are not don't enjoy getting. That would be the first letter. The second letter would be a reminder, and at the same time we would be attempting to make to phone the property owners and also maybe catch them at their property. And as best as we can, we would staff would be concentrating on this program, which would take their time away from some of their other duties, but it's just the only way that we can approach the startup on this. Let's see what other aspects of it. As I have in here that we're proposing the permit fees to be $65 and then an inspection fee of $65. And part of the reason we use those figures is because that is the same type of fee that we charge for minimal permits and for our inspections today, and it just would be consistent with our programs and our tracking. Yes, sir.
That's a one-time permit that I have to buy, but then an annual $65 inspection fee, correct?
The way we laid this out was that it would be a permit renewal would be another $65 and then another inspection. But we're open to other approaches to this.
Okay.
So is it 130 the first time?
Yes, sir.
And second time. What
And
you're
the
saying.
second time.
And third time.
Right.
It's 130
So
a year.
you go to the house and there's nothing wrong with it and they still got to pay 130 every year?
Yes.
Where'd you get this from?
Well, as we came up with a permit fee and an inspection fee. Those are the two efforts that are done by staff time. And again, we used the fees that we currently have for the permits, such as fence permits and the minor permits that we have now. And our inspection fees are $65.
But we could be charging somebody that has no problems.
Correct.
Hopefully you're charging them all with no problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is not good.
Well, and as I had mentioned, that the self-certification that Clewiston was proposing, that approach we could look at using that to an extent, but I wouldn't go as far as what Clewiston was proposing because they actually required another inspection for the change of tenants. And what we were trying to do was just do an annual renewal and just to maybe simplify it a little bit there with
Okay.
that.
Well, we can come back to that. There's obvious discussion point there.
Okay. I think I've covered the remaining, points that I highlighted here. On the second page, though, I highlight what the initial cost of the letters that would be noticing the property owners, and some initial costs for a one-time ad in the newspaper. Obviously, that we would be proposing to have more than one ad, maybe for 2-3 weeks in a row type thing, so that we really can get the word out, and along with social media. And also we'd be advertising for the community meetings that we're recommending. As I have in here right now, the startup of the program, we'd be looking at the current demolition fund, and the intent is to have the permit and inspection fees to cover the costs going forward. So we are open to questions on this.
What do you anticipate with additional staffing?
Excuse me. Well, as you know, we recently hired a new residential building inspector. He would be the primary person conducting the inspections. The permits would be going through the permitting department, and at this point in time, we're not proposing additional staff. we're intending to use what we have.
That's 660 properties. That's a lot. That's why I was just trying to do the math on what that would take, how long, that'd be a while just in those alone, wouldn't it?
Well, the letters, the initial mailings and the second mailings in that, although it's a lot of, the numbers are a lot, we don't see that we would be utilizing staff's time focusing on that initially. So that would take away from some of the regular other duties. But we felt like that we could go ahead and we could do that.
Okay. And and one thing that I would hate to see this turn into, in my personal opinion, is another grab for $65 or $130. And so we need to make sure that there's a mechanism in place that at whatever we land on number, that it's upon inspection they will pay it, not just send your $65 in and we'll mail your certificate.
Oh, sure.
So I don't want it to turn into, we paid and we got our certificate, but we never seen anybody come by.
Right. Oh, no. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That would not be the intent.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Okay, on the first flow chart, you got violations, junk, debris.
Oh, we're not there yet.
That's the wrong one. We're on the other one.
But I'm on this one right
No,
here.
we're on this one. We're discussing this one.
Oh, well, I thought she was through with that.
Well, any questions? She's taking questions off of this one for now. Then we'll go to
I
that.
don't have any questions.
No questions over that. Commissioner Turner?
Yeah, I don't see how we can implement the residential rental housing permit pilot program and looking at the depth that we're going to get into with this. Because what's been proposed, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike Swindle or Carson Turner has a house that they're renting to someone. And it's known because it's our property that's in our name, but it's not our homestead property that we choose to get our homestead exemption on. So now the county is going to notify us, I believe, that we have to engage in an inspection process, and then the county's going to go into said home, and they're going to inspect it from the outside and go into the inside and inspect it and make sure everything's up to code. Is that the
Exactly
intent?
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
go
we
out-
can't do that. Can't do that. I mean, we can't even code enforce the problems that we have right now. How in the world? I don't care if we hire 5 humans. We're not going to do this.
So that's why I asked the staffing
And it
question.
sounds good, and I think it's a step in the right direction in theory, but this is outside of our ability to implement right now.
With current staff levels. Is that what you're saying?
Any kind of stuff.
I don't know if we'll ever do this in a compliant manner. And obviously, Ms. Emmons, this is something that I'm vehemently, I want to see something that allows for us to monitor the bad actors and the people that are stacking humans on top of humans. But I don't know if this mechanism is the one that we get there with, because I think what I still see on this today is the person that wants to do it illegally they're still going to do it. And I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't know how we're going to bring that together to get to the same page of that, because what you all have done is said, okay, we're going to look at a database that's out there. We're going to identify those people that have rentals, and then we're going to go in and we're going to inspect them, and we're going to charge them either 65 or 130. But let's just say the number is 0. We're going to charge them something, and then we're going to come back and monitor. What we've done is we've created more rules that we're not going to be able to do. Because I get back to, there are homes, there are places, there are things in Hookers Point, on Hookers Point Road, that you can drive down Hookers Point Road. You don't have to go down Geiger or Johnson or Tower Lakes or go out to Jackman's Ranch. You can drive down Hookers Point Road, and there's things that have been there for 8+ years, and we haven't dealt with those. So I think we're trying to bite off a little bit more than we can chew, and so my suggestion was going to be that we have a great, healthy discussion, and y'all tell me where y'all are at on this one, and I'm all about, being the 4-to-1 guy if y'all don't agree with it. But I wanted to move into flowchart 1 and 2 and understand how we can make flowchart 1 and 2 so that Margaret Embledge and her staff have essentially more teeth to be able to deal with the problems that I think are grossly apparent that y'all can't even get the help with right now to deal with, you know? Because I mean, there's just things out there that you simply don't have enough manpower and or the ability to deal with that. And you all know that they're bad actors. You all know that they're not doing things that you all want them to do. But you don't have the ability to engage that. And so I want to make the county have our staff feel reinforced by this board, and then put your pilot program into an area and say, okay, we're going to put a bullseye on this and we're going to deal with that first. And then from there, I think that we can look into a broader program. But I think just by doing the code enforcement aspects alone and dealing with the flow charts, which I'm really excited about you doing this. And I hope there's a couple typos, but I don't know, because if it doesn't, there's some things that I think I see a glaring mistake now. And then allow us to help y'all. Because there's some things here that were red flags to me in the flowchart process that maybe I think that's why I see some things that have been there for 8 years.
Okay, you want to, let's see if there's any other specific questions about the initial presentation?
The rental inspection program.
And then any other specific questions?
Just that one, right? That's what you
And then
want?
we can come back and then we'll wrap after the second discussion, and then we'll.
Anyway, I agree with Commissioner Turner, and I'd like us to concentrate on the flow charts 1 and 2, because all it is what we do every day. You got junk, debris, vehicles, yard waste, moving, mowing violations, property maintenance, and all that. I think if we focus on those two flow charts, that will come up with a solution. But for as the 10 people in the house, that's a different ballgame altogether.
Okay.
Even,
Any questions on the first piece of Ms. Emblinger's presentation?
even with that being said, if we follow what we're already doing, and you might walk up on the house that have the 10 people, then you deal with that then, because 600, that's a big area unless you block it down that I'm going to focus on this area and then focus on that area, but that's just too much to cover. And like I said, we don't have the manpower for that, but we might need to break it down into sections. And, but I do know there's inspection where they go in the house, but we're not going to be able to fix that, not like that. At least I don't believe we are. I know your ideals is in the right place, but we're not going to fix that flow on that level of what we do have with the manpower we do have.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson?
And just adding to, just with the rest of the board here, the problem is we already have an issue in Hendry County of no affordable housing. So once we implement this right here, we're going to be taking 660 people, putting them out of a home. That granted, it's not a home, and then we're already putting more pressure on a part of our board members out here that's already stressed. We finally get 2 inspectors. We've had 1. We've worked him to death for the past 15 years. We finally get 2, so we're going to put more strain all the way around, I believe, as Commissioner Turner said. We're going to create a whirlwind there. Imagine one guy owning 250 of those. Who's going to incur that cost? The renter.
Appreciate your effort, but
Yeah, it's a formula, but we just got to find a better way to. And I do believe, I agree, once we get into the flow charts, I believe we're going to be able to find the answers to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think right now, Margaret, y'all just take the violations as they called in, or do you go out looking for them?
Are we going to the next subject?
No, I meant, isn't that how you normally used to do it, or whatever?
No, as far as code enforcement goes, they tour the around the county in the different communities, and they open up cases where they see violations, and we also get phone calls. But the majority of our cases are what the code enforcement officers observe in the field.
Okay.
But what are you talking about on Hooker's Point for 8?
Oh, no, it's just like she says. They observe them. They engage it. They go through the process. They send the letter. They do this, that, and the other, and then it goes to a separate point, and then it dies. Nothing else has happened, and I think that's a deflating process.
So it don't ever get to the judge.
Well,
And even if it does, no action happens.
I don't get anything done, right?
Well, that's supposed to change.
Speaking specifically to the rental inspection program, Ms. Image, that I know you're wanting direction on, I think that it's a grand idea, but I think it's too grand for us right now in the stage that we're at as a county. Not because I'm fearful of 660 homes or the cost of sending out mail or anything like that. I think that we have such a lower hanging fruit that we need to get a hold of, and we need to deal with that problem first, and then hopefully, if we deal with that problem, which directly correlates, I'm trying not to talk to that point yet until we close this one out. But I think when we deal with that, then I think we're going to see a lower number and a smaller percentage of a problem, perhaps. I could be dead wrong. I mean, and then, like my question to the rental inspection program, it was just, how do you verify that that's a renter? What's the mechanism for that? I mean, if you wanted to answer that question, feel free. We don't have to, because to me, I don't see this as being a starter right now for our county. I think that it's a little outside of our scope of ability to implement. I didn't even know that we had another building inspector. So Mark has a colleague now that is that correct?
Yes.
That's outstanding, But I almost feel that it's a lack of use of finite resources that we have to take someone and say, okay, we're going to designate you to one portion of the county. And even let's just say you shrunk it and you said we're just going to do Commissioner Byrd's district or just Commissioner Turner's district in unincorporated. I still think that's asking too much of one person to go in and actually engage that process of going into the rental inspection program. And my devil's advocate brain goes to work and it says, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you may think it's a rental, but I will prove to you 13 different ways how it's not a rental, and you need to get out of my home and leave me alone and allow me to do exactly what I want to do. And I'm going to poke holes in it all day long. And I'm telling you, that's a very easy thing to do. Now, you all have created a tremendous amount of work, devoted a tremendous amount of resources, and somebody's undermining the process anyway, and then that's going to spread like wildfire in itself. Whereas if we deal with the next item coming up, I think that we can help you facilitate what you want to do.
What I would suggest, just so that you're further educated on what we're proposing and how these programs work, Debbie McNeil from Clewiston is here tonight, and I think it would be good to hear from her how they've been successful with the program they do have in place. And as I mentioned before, they have a proposed revision to their program that their board have been considering, but it's on the table right now. In the meantime, there's an existing program that is in place and it's being implemented. And I would ask Debbie to educate you on how that has worked, and it might allay some of your concerns and educate you a little bit more on how it could work.
Okay. All right, Ms. McNeil, can you give us a 5 or 7 minute snapshot so we have time to move along?
Hi, my name is Debbie McNeil. For the record, I am Community Improvement Division with the City of Clewiston, and we do currently have a rental inspection program, and the drafted one that you have before you is my new drafted version that I hope to get passed in the City of Clewiston because of the loopholes that I currently find that my current residential rental inspection does not pick up. I hear your concerns for your staffing, but it's another tool in the toolbox. Please don't look at it as a separate entity for what your code enforcement officers are out there doing. They'll be doing the same exact job, but with that permit, you're giving them the ability to make a better contact with these absentee homeowners that do not care for their property like a homeowner does. They put these renters in there. They charge them outrageous amounts of rents, and they do not keep up that property to meet your standards. We're looking for the minimum housing standards. When we go into our program and they call me now and I go in for an inspection, I'm not looking for it to be up to building code. I'm looking for it to be just to our minimum housing standards. Are there holes in the floor? Is the railings rotting? Is the roof leaking? Is there a bucket under the sink with moldy water? And believe me, in my small 4.5 diameter city, it was overran with these absentee homeowners, and I had no teeth. I was better off than what your county people are because at least we had a minimal, if at best, rental program there. And we do have our utilities, so we connect it to our utilities. When a renter comes into our utility department to get their power on, they don't get it turned on until I see that house. Until I give my utilities department an inspection that says pass our minimum standards that we expect of you business owners, who, that is what rental people are. People who are renting houses in our county, our city, they're business people. And so do we charge them a little bit for a permit on the front half to be able to have a house and bring their people in and run their business and our infrastructure? It might cost them a little bit, but that's the cost of doing business, because we want to make sure that our housing stock is held to the minimum standards of what our code ordinance dictate. This program, the pilot program, I know you guys are much bigger than ours, and so I do, when I even think of the county, I think of the overwhelming numbers of what you have. But you got to get started somewhere. This is a tool for your code enforcement officer. It is not nothing that they're not doing right now. It just gives them another ability to get into the houses that you keep seeing. That may be a rental place, and that owner may be absent, and he may not be responding because it's not his place. He's making his rent. He don't care about that property. He lives in Orlando or in Arkansas. So it's not a program where you're giving your people more work to do. It's a tool where you're allowing your people to do the job they need to do effectively. Good?
Very good.
Anybody have questions?
Tons.
Ask them. But I only have 2 more minutes.
So then explain to me how a commercial property in the city of Clewiston has 30-plus units on it that are, in my opinion, in complete disarray, and we know have people stacked on top of people, and you're telling me that you guys have gone in there, looked at that, and those are all up to code and meeting?
Residential rental.
Residential rental, what does
You
that
just
mean?
said commercial.
No, it's a
residential rental
commercial
versus commercial.
property. It's zoned commercial.
I don't do commercial inspections.
So
Residential
there
rental.
you go. So right there, that's a prime example of what I'm talking about.
But we caught them.
Because it's a commercial property, even though they have a recreational vehicle that's on it, and there's 20 humans living in there, it's a loophole that we leave it alone. And what
Oh,
I'm saying
no,
is
no,
I'm not
no.
about creating more laws to not be able to enforce any of the laws that we have.
I didn't say that I would leave that alone, sir. And those people are no longer in that place. If you're talking about the pizza place that caught on fire,
No, I'm not even talking
they
about
were
Hungry
in there
Highs.
illegal,
I'm not
and they
talking
are
about-
gone.
I'm not talking about Hungry Highs specifically. I'm talking about when I'm sitting in Sunrise Restaurant, and I have, we'll leave names out of it, but I have people that are coming to Clewiston that want to invest, and they're anxiously wanting to see what is potentially out there.
Mm-hmm.
We drive down, they've already looked up, they know what our commercial properties are. And they challenge me with, how do y'all have that many, essentially, they call them trailers, they're not really trailers, they're
RVs.
RVs. How do you have that many RVs on a commercial piece of property that's allowing that to essentially perpetuate itself time and time and time again? And the thing that blows my mind is the lack of ability to get energy behind this discussion, because what we don't want to look at is, this is a burden on our school system, on our emergency room.
Okay, but I would
on
like
our-
to speak specifically to the RV place.
Okay, let's talk specifically to that
Because as the
one.
city of Clewiston,
Yes.
that is my area of jurisdiction.
Okay.
I have effectively brought everyone that was in violation to my special magistrate, and they are currently within compliance of our code.
Then that's a problem. If that neighborhood is considered compliance to the code, then.
They are within compliance with our code.
We have a big problem. Okay.
We've lost, let's see, I had to have 4 demoed,
Uh-huh.
and there was 4 that could not be brought into code, so they were demoed. I took people's homes from them.
Uh-huh.
And so that park that you're talking about, I take personally because I did a lot of work in there. It
And the
was
county- and
a
the-
year and a half of my life.
The county has probably that to the 10th power.
But it takes
And-
somebody
and-
getting
and
in
I can just
there,
think of
and
2
it's hard
neighborhoods.
work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
It's
It's
hard work
hard. It's
because
not-
it's
it's-
years of stuff that has been left undone.
That's exactly right. Because people don't want to have, in my opinion, they don't want to have the discussion that we're having right now
And that's what you need.
identify the tools to get people in your position.
But this permit
To be able
is
to
a
have
tool.
support.
Exactly, you said the right word. This permit is a huge tool for that process to take place. It was a huge tool for me and my abilities to effectively do my job. And it would be a huge tool for your code enforcement officer to do their job too.
Any other questions?
How do you distinguish between So you feel that you have every rental property identified?
Absolutely not with my current program. That's why I want this program,
Okay.
because I know where the loopholes are, and this program covers them.
And what do you see as a potential loophole? So tell me how you
Right
verify
now-
that renter.
Right now, we don't have the permitting process. Our process is free, and we attach it to the utility. So when
Okay.
they come in and they say, hey, here's my lease, I'm renting this property, I need the power on in my name. Oh, you can't have the power on in your name until my inspector comes out and says that the house meets our minimum standards. What happens is, we get these absentee owners that learn this loophole, and they'll keep that power on in their name. And they risk the power, having to eat
Yes.
the power bill. So with me getting this permit for everybody who has one, I don't care if you have one rental house in my city, I want you to have to go to my building department, get a permit to do the business in my city, like every other business does, and tell me you're there. And then I get to go see your house, I get to inspect it, make sure it meets my housing minimum standards, and that will stop them. I don't even have to deal with my electric, because then I have an ordinance that will tell me, if you don't have an ordinance and I discover you're a rental, I take you to special magistrate. You're going to get fined. You're
What do you-
going to come into compliance with my ordinance.
What do you do with water?
What do I do with water?
Y'all-
Ours, water, sewer, and electric is all together, so
it's
it's all
one-
encompassing.
one
Yes, sir.
package.
Yes, sir, it's all encompassing. And that's one edge we do have
Yeah,
with control.
okay. But they'd
So
have
that's
to-
why you need the
It
permitting
would have
part.
to be new or switch before
Yes.
you could. send.
Exactly. And that's how they get away with it. They just leave it in the owner's name, and no matter how many renters are coming through there,
They're gonna lose money at the end somewhere.
if they get stuck with the utility bill, yes,
They'll get stuck.
yes.
Do you have a list of, you say you look at holes and floors, different stuff like that. Do you have a list that is? Because you keep saying my standards.
I do, yes, sir. And we
Is
have,
this
what
a
we
standard
have,
that's in a,
Clewiston ordinance,
okay.
minimum housing standards. It's called the minimal habitable housing standards in our Section 18 building code. You guys have one quite similar to it.
Well, and the second part of that is, you said you're going to identify homes that cannot claim homestead exemption. I have 5. They can't claim homestead exemption. They don't pay rent.
And,
They live on my property, so how are we going to do this?
but that's okay, because it would
You're
just,
going to spend a lot of time, effort, staff, money trying to identify these things.
no, it really wouldn't take that much effort. I would send you a letter, because you have 5 properties in your name, 4 of them not homestead exempted. And you would send me back and say, a family member lives here. And that would be honesty to honesty, but it gives me teeth. It still gives me teeth on the
How?
back
I mean,
end.
anybody can send you back and
Because if
say,
you don't
"My-
come get
my
that
son
permit
lives
and I
there, my daughter lives
prove,
there." I mean,
because it gives me a tool in my toolbox as a code enforcement officer to make your, as a commissioner's code ordinance to be effective. Otherwise, they're just sitting there doing nothing. There's always ways to get away with the loopholes, and you try to close them the best you can. And this tool closes a lot of them, I promise you. It's been very effective. Just in the smaller format that I have, I've been in law enforcement, civilian side and auxiliary side for 17 years. I've just come out into the code world 3 years ago. And my housing stock is 100% better today in the city of Clewiston than when I took over.
Your housing stock, is that what you
Our
said?
housing stock.
Yes, ma'am.
I think what we're facing, though, more or less, is like you said, we have good renters. And then we have the ones that are, they're going to
Bad
get
actors.
around. Right. It's just-
And they're the ones that's going to get around this?
And that's what we're going to have to do in the second part of this in order to find that. So
Right.
I just,
Second charge.
Thank you, Ms. Debbie.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Semblage, would you like to get started with the second piece and give us a quick overview of what you've got for that?
And before she starts, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
Ms. Evans, one thing too, for me personally, and I think the board may have a little different opinion, is I don't look at this as anything that we would ever be able to do that would be cost neutral. I think this will be a negative cost to us. But I think that if you look at it from a cost neutral versus making money or how much are you losing, I think the minimal amount of money that we would spend to be able to keep people into compliance and to not allow bad activities to occur and perpetuate themselves for generations, because it's amazing how quick a generation gets away from you. It would save us so much money on the back end from a property value standpoint that I think that I think that we would be short-sighted if we just looked at it from a cost neutral standpoint. So for me, I just, that's not what's holding me up as the figures. It's just the ability to be able to implement what you have on paper here. And then when I say implement, I mean our ability to get into the second discussion that we're going to have right now, which is how do we actually engage that process and bring it through to fruition to where you're actually able to see an attitude have to be changed by the letter and the law that is on the books that someone has to adhere to. Because right now we don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, we have to change our actions if we want different results.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Okay.
So the next item on the workshop is the code enforcement process. We provided you an overview of, that included 2 flow charts that represent the primary processes that we have. And as I highlighted in here and attached, that there are certain statutes in Hendry County Code of Ordinances that dictate what the code enforcement process is. And I know that that you all, think that it takes forever for our process, and what I've highlighted here is, the research staff did was to look at other communities, and we're on the basic process is in step with their time frame of their process. What makes these cases last longer than you'd want them to, or go on for longer than you want them to, is because staff is working with the property owner to figure out how to get them in compliance without having to go to the citation step. The important part about this as well is that part of the reason why they don't make it to the judge is because once they, many times what happens with these cases is that when the folks know that they have a citation and they've been posted and it's, the next step is the judge, they'll remedy the issue that they have on their property. And so when it goes to the judge and the judge sees that it's been remedied, it was all for naught. So we've had a lot of cases that have actually followed that, that approach. But I will say that when you see the list of how many cases we have open, those and the number of cases we've closed, it's pretty amazing that the reason why we have all these cases that are closed is because staff has spent a lot of time working with the property owners. Do we have repeat offenders? Yes, we do. Do we have situations where people game the system? We do. But since I've been here, we have looked at, through your direction, how can we shorten the process and be more effective? Well, as I mentioned, the process that we've laid out here complies with, the statutes in the code, and we've highlighted, the what ifs that can happen, and more often than not, again, folks will, at the end of the day, before they go before the judge, they'll fix the problem. And so we've spent a lot of time and effort getting to that point, but it's taken a very long time for that. I am happy to go through these flow charts, but it seems to me like you all already have some questions that you want to ask staff, and so I'll just leave my opening statements there, and
Okay. All right. Good thinking. Let's do that, and then we'll see how it goes. Any questions, anybody?
I want to hear Commissioner Harris first.
But the flow chart, that's by statute, right? Flow chart?
the flow chart, yes, the flow chart follows statute and our code, which,
So if you're going by the flow chart, your holdup is right before you go to the judge, they usually come in and say, well, we're gonna clean the yard up, or we're gonna do this. Then it delays it another while, I guess. Because sometimes it can take 2 or 3 months, right?
Yes, yes,
To get to that process.
To get to the judge process.
yes, yes, because we're trying to work with them, because they'll come in and say, we're going to fix this, and we say, okay, trying to be, cooperative and work with them. And, a lot of them have a hardship that makes it difficult for them to comply.
So if you go right by the flow chart, how long would it take you to get to the judge?
30 to 45 days.
That's 2 months. I think that's long enough. After that, I think it should bang right on to the judge. Because most of them people just take advantage of y'all and everybody else too. They have no intentions of doing anything,
Well,
most of them.
I believe that's what she's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, and those that are doing that anyway, and they're getting in trouble for their yard being too high, well, they wait up to the last minute, then they'll hurry up, mow it, and they satisfied it, didn't go to the judge, or the judge said, okay, you did that, well, 60 days later it's back higher, and now there's wood pallets packed up, and so it's a continual process, and it's those that are just taking advantage of the fringes.
But if they meet that guideline, you can't do anything about it. But
That's
the
right.
people that don't meet that guideline needs to go on to the judge.
Well, I spoke to Judge Cup today,
I suppose.
and I asked him, he said he's been here 3 years, and he says he can count on one hand how many folks have stepped before him over this
So
process.
they're fixing to start. They've got some that's going before him.
Yeah.
Oh.
But if you do that flow chart 1, and you go through all that, that's a full-time job for anybody. And
So are you suggesting that we minimize us giving them more time and working with them and
yes, ma'am.
push them through the process?
That would give y'all more time too, because you just cut them off right there, and then you can go to something else.
You're saying shorten the time that they have to comply?
Yes.
Is any of that statutory?
It is statutory. Are you saying shorten the time to comply or shorten the time that we are giving them to comply? If they have a mowing violation and they call and say, I can't have it done by 2 weeks, my lawnmower is broke, can I get an additional week or 2? Are you saying to cut that time?
That week or 2, what I'm really talking about is these people that,
On the flow chart itself,
Yeah.
the time frame on
Yeah.
there, but those are statutory.
Those are statutory.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, that.
the statutory, where you got these junk, debris, cars,
Right.
all that
right.
stuff.
Right, we have to notify them whether it's in person or.
And they're not,
and give
and
them-
most of them's not gonna move those until a
Right.
judge tells them to move them.
Exactly, and everything in our ordinance just says, well, our ordinance and Florida statute says a reasonable time to comply.
Yeah.
The only slight definition I've been able to find of reasonable says, no less than 5 and no more than 30.
Then
So
I
we
do-
usually do about a 7-day for the first notice and then move into 2
I
weeks.
do a
for the
7
next.
and let it go right.
We can. We have to do the 7, then we have to go, that's a notice of investigation. Then we have to come back and give you a notice of violation, and that's where the more time comes in. Then we have to post your property and the courthouse, and then after that, then we can write a citation and send it over for the judge to schedule a
Okay,
court
so
date.
that would be as early as you could get it to the judge.
Yes.
Okay, whatever the earliest point is,
Yes,
that's when it needs
and
to go.
I've talked to several other counties, and all of them are about on the same level, a minimum of 30 days before you can get to a judge. And we actually even, Myra and myself, had a meeting with Bonita Springs supervisor and department manager, and they came in and reviewed our process, and they actually felt like we're cutting it too short by not, you have to give the property owners due process. We have to legally give them time to comply and make sure they're notified. And so we're kind of at I don't think we can cut our flow chart anymore. When I started in code enforcement, we had a minimum of 120 days is what they had, and we cut it down to 64 a couple years back, and now we've cut it down to the 35, 45. So, I mean, that's kind of where we are now.
So legally, 35, 40, okay.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So, the things that seem backwards to me, Ms. Embledge, and I was wondering, is it a typo where it says, and I'm on a, well, let me ask it first. Flow chart 1 and 2, they're different because it's different violations that have occurred. That's why there's a little bit different of the steps that are going to be taken, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
On flow chart 1, if you go down to the second box on the far right-hand column, so you go past judge's ruling options, go to your far right hand, you see issue a daily fine until a violation is corrected. And then the next one below it says lien is placed on the property once the violation has been corrected. Is that correct?
Yes.
That seems ass backwards to me.
What this one is describing is, I'll give you an example. I have a code case that is that way. The person brought a mobile home on the property, and I've taken them to court twice. The judge issued a daily fine. So that daily fine is continuing to accrue until he comes into compliance and gets a permit for that mobile home. Once he gets the permit for that mobile home, then I will go back and lien his property for the amount of time he did not have. So that's where the daily fine comes in.
The problem that I have with this is I guarantee you, if you go back in the history of our county and you look, the amount of collection on that issue of daily fine and the amount of times that it's come before us and asked for forgiveness, or this is an encumbrance on the property and its ability to be sold. Anybody ever heard that phrase before? And so that's the kind of things that make me want to stab myself with this pen, because we're asking you all to go out there and work and do your job, and then we're going to forget about all this. And I'm telling you, that becomes the status quo of how you conduct business in Henry County, where to me, I want to know what mechanisms can we put in place, Ms. Embledge? How can we make it to where if I have a citation that has been issued to me, the daily fine, that's really irrelevant to a point. You all are just doing everything in your power to make said violator come into compliance. Now, there's a number that's going to be reached, but we're not worried about putting a lien. You can put a lien. That's irrelevant. That's a number that never has to be realized. How do you actually start the process of foreclosing on said property and engaging that? And isn't that, Mark, something where you and or our office of what you do for us? I don't care if we have to hire an outside source to come in, because maybe you're overburdened and this would be something that would add to your docket. But I just think that's what we need to be looking at doing, because if you're not actually going through the finite process of saying, okay, you've been out of compliance for X number of days, you've ran up this tab, now you have a lien on it. I equate it to this. Kevin Nelson and his department back there, we give them millions of dollars a year to hold order as a sheriff's department, right? But you have a bunch of 55-mile-an-hour speeders that are coming through at 70 miles an hour every day. They're coming through at 70 miles an hour. And we give them this ticket, and we say, one day you're going to have to pay this ticket. And if you don't pay it, we're going to be really upset, and we're going to put a lien against this vehicle. And now that vehicle gets up to where it has $10,000, $15,000 worth of tickets against it, and then they just go park that car, and they go buy another vehicle. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the county's done nothing. The sheriff has really said that he's worked hard on trying to get people speeding tickets, but we've done nothing to discourage actual speeders, because they're being told you're really going to get in trouble next time if you do this again. Maybe that point got lost on y'all, but the point I'm making is that we do this all the time. We have a violation that gets ran up. We tell them they have to come into compliance. They never come into compliance. The lien gets put on the property, and no action is ever realized by Hendry County except a forgiveness that comes before this board. Please tell me I'm wrong on that, or counter what I'm saying. Please understand, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to find out what we can do to create policy to help y'all to fix this issue.
Technically, I think there's a little bit of disconnect. The daily fine liens that we're talking about on this, this is the first one I've ever done in the 10 years I've been here. We don't normally have daily fines because, like I said, by the time we get to court, they've usually complied or the judge gives them time to comply.
Not to cut you off, in 8 years as a commissioner, it's probably in the top 4 things that a constituent brings to me that they get irate about. I got a letter from the county that says, if I don't, I'm going to have a fine for X number of dollars per day until I come into compliance. And I don't know how many times we've issued that, but it's been more than.
We are not able to issue that daily fine. The judge has to. The section that you're looking at the bottom.
I've had multiple
Those are
constituents
the
come to my
options.
office with a letter that says,
Yes.
if we don't come into compliance, and they're on county letterhead and there ain't no judge
Yes,
involved.
we have to, the statute requires us to state that, and the fact that they can appeal to the Board of County Commissioners. We have to state that on every one of our notices of violation.
But you're just saying a judge will
Tell
find them. I mean,
But the
not-
judge is the one
right.
who will fine you, but we have
You
to
just
state
choose
it on
to
our notices,
let them know
letting
they
you know
will.
that you could receive up to this and how you can appeal it. That, which is something Margaret and I are trying to look into to figure out what, if anything, we can change, but as of right now, that is something that's required on.
So
any
there's,
notice
so
of
there's no
violation.
mechanism for the county to foreclose on said property whenever there's an issue that has occurred, and it's a repeat offender. I mean, this is happening. That's not possible, Mark?
Attorney Lapp, can you weigh in on that?
You can foreclose on a lien, a recorded lien, and that's just like a mortgage gets foreclosed on. It's a legal proceeding. An attorney would have to handle it. I've not been given any referrals since I've been here
Ever.
for a foreclosure on a code enforcement lien.
And I think that needs to occur to start bringing people into compliance, to make them understand that this is not just paper that's being handed out, and there's no action that's going to arrive on your end.
But Mark, as long as they don't sell the property, the lien just stays there.
Stays there, and then a transfer, and that's what they're counting on. Somebody's going to refinance, or they're going to sell, and then it's paid, it's satisfied at that point.
You see, a lot of them would just hold on to it, and then they just keep leaning it.
Or we're going to forgive it
Or
because we
they'll
were
come
going
back
to
and
Back to the same
forgiveness.
problem. You
And then
can't
they hit
go
us up
right.
with, you want this back on the tax rolls, you need to forgive all this.
Right, that's
And
what
that's,
right there.
that's,
So we just repeating the cycle.
Ms. Butler, have you heard that before?
The forgiveness, just to clarify, the forgiveness ones have been either on county assessments, on county, like solid waste. I know we've forgiven that on the old, when we used to lien properties for solid waste as opposed to putting it on a tax bill.
Or demo?
Well, anyway, the ones I'm aware of are forgiving old solid waste assessment liens. I'm not forgiving old code enforcement liens. It might have happened on maybe some tax deed properties where we're trying to sell it and we want the title cleaned up, and so we're cleaning it up for purposes of being able to get it on the tax roll again.
Well, then to me, if you're saying that this doesn't happen at a rate that's anything that you can recollect in your recent memories, then I say that we're not following through with the steps internally enough to even start that process. That we're missing that conversation. We're missing that critical step in this conversation for action to occur.
What are we missing, Ms. Simblage? Why are we not to those steps? Or Kelly, can you help us with that?
Honestly, that is not a process that I was ever taught. That's not a process we've ever done. The only liens we normally do, other than recently with the demos, they run, we bill someone $60 to mow a property, so they'll have a couple of $60 liens on their properties. That's all we really have, and I don't know what the number is that you would need to get to be able to foreclose on. That's honestly not something I've ever
I
done.
think there's another disconnect. Do y'all, I mean, am I the only person that feels that we have a code compliance issue that we have? I mean, I truly feel that there are a number of residences in my district specifically that are not code compliant. They have built onto their home without a correct permit. Mark, you can think of the one just down the greenhouse. I've heard that that's been completely retrofitted on the inside. And there is no, I've asked every contractor that I know, and I know them all pretty well, and none of them have done that. And I'm not saying that any of our code enforcement officers turned out. I think it was done under the cover of darkness on a Sunday evening. I don't know when it was done. I really don't, because I drive by there every day, Margaret. But now that it's been done, I want to know what actions the county can take to make sure that this doesn't happen time and time again, and what can we do to make it? Because I'm going to tell you right now, that structure is not safe. It is going to fall in. Somebody's going to be hurt, or they're going to stack a ton of people in there, and it's just going to be back to the original issue that I have a problem with time and time again that I see.
Did anybody see them start the house?
No, nobody always saw it was the exchange, sale pending, done.
All of a sudden it's through?
There's just a little bit of work that happened, and then everything's done on the inside. And I mean, it's crazy, and it happens a lot.
Because normally somebody turns them in.
But I'm talking about just even on our main corridors, I see some gross problems, and what y'all are telling me is that we don't actually have a process where we say you're out of compliance. we're going to fine you X. That statute doesn't
No,
exist.
we issue you a citation.
Citation.
And then that citation goes to the judge if you still do not comply or pay it. And then the judge makes the call after that, whether you pay the citation, whether you don't. Once we send it to the judge, that, if they pay the citation, if it's a $150 citation, that doesn't come back to code enforcement or the county. I mean, that goes to the judge. It's just like a speeding ticket. It's now in the court's hands, and we kind of lose it once we send it over there. The only thing that we have is when the judge issues a daily fine, or if we have a mowing or junk and debris that on an abandoned property that we're able to go in and clean up. And then we just bill the property owner exactly what the contractor invoiced us for.
But
If
what
it's
the-
$30, it's $30. We don't.
What the judge has got to understand is, when it comes to him, code has stood on their head and begged and everything they can do. And that's when he should act on it. He shouldn't give them 30 more days, 60 more days.
You know the vacant house on Kanawha? You know the vacant land on Kanawha that had the two structures? Y'all had, one of them still has an RV on it. You know what I'm talking about?
I think I do.
And there's a Connex box on it. You guys know what I'm talking about?
That's
So Mr. Peter,
Yeah.
Mr. Peter has almost given himself a coronary explaining to me how he wants to have that problem dealt with. How does the county fix that? That's what I want to know. How does Hendry County fix that problem? Because that problem is prevalent throughout Hendry County. How do we fix that? How do we fix that?
How do we fix?
How do we fix that blight so where we can mow it, we can charge absentee owner and or person who lives in Miami-Dade or Kalamazoo, Michigan? I don't care. How do we make that person either A, fix the issues that we send them notice to for being in violation, and or if they don't fix it, we give them X number of days, we start to fix it, and the meter starts to run because they are not fixing their problem. And they are creating a hardship for their neighbors. I don't know if y'all have that in any of your districts. I have it all over mine.
We all do.
Not my understanding, we have to go to a judge and get a judge court order allowing us to go on the property to remove the container.
Mark, we have to have a judge's order to go on said property. The county can't do that.
Yeah, to take action like that, yes. I mean, we
Yeah.
got mowing authority to enter for that, but for
The other
to
types,
taking things down, no.
and removing any of the,
Personal items.
So
Right.
a judge issued you all the ability to go on there and destroy that unsafe structure, to demo that unsafe structure.
No.
How's that different then?
Unsafe structure has its own section in our ordinance that allows us to do the proper posting and.
How is an RV, then how is a recreational vehicle that is stacked with debris, that is filled, it's infested with rats, I'm not making this up,
right.
and it's an eyesore, and any jackleg can go out there and create an arson situation, how is that not unsafe? How do we not have the ability, the tool in our toolbox to fix that?
Well, RV would be different, wouldn't it?
Please, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. Tell me if I'm crazy. Please, if y'all think I'm wrong, then say, Commissioner, you're way out of line. You need to dial it down. We're not BOCC. But I'm not asking us to be BOCC. I just want us to deal with these problems, and I'm hearing that there's some problems. And Mark, I don't know if there's a policy solution for this, or is it state statute that binds us? And or can we play in the gray? Because I love that.
Unsafe building sounds like the angle, if it's.
Is an RV considered a structure is what? The building official is the one who
Unsafe
deems it.
building, we could do it as some kind of life
Mark,
safety.
Mark, you want to come up and talk on the microphone?
So
we're
Mr. Chair,
too.
Mr. Chair, I know we're going on.
Yeah, we gotta.
But I just want to say this, Ms. Embledge, I'm glad that y'all have allowed us to have this conversation. I think that we need to have another one. I think that we've proposed a couple different scenarios, but that's the meat and potatoes for me is when we have a bad accident, we have a trailer that's boarded up. And I can give you time and time again. I saw him, I think the 13th, me, you, and Charles are scheduled to do another drive around. I'm looking forward to that. And I'll give you a couple finite examples. And I think that we ought to look at that and have some conversation of how can we get to a place where we're dealing with those. And that's why I'm so adamant of us engaging a rental inspection program, because I think that we have these low-hanging fruits that we need to deal with before we even start tearing into another Pandora's
Say,
box.
Mark, what's the difference between RV and mobile home?
There's quite a bit of difference.
Okay.
Can you take action on an RV,
Not as unsafe structures the way you can a mobile home is different,
but you can make them move the RV, right?
possibly. It would just be a different avenue.
Ms. Embledge, number one. Phenomenal job on putting together at the beginning. I believe what it's the beginning of a a topic that needs to be broached, dug into, and dealt with, and that we don't need to sit on it, wait, kick it, or do anything else. We need to work on it. Have you and your staff got the feel from the discussion that we've had from what we would like to see from a board standpoint?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to repeat what I think I heard.
Okay, please do. Please do.
One is that you're not interested in going forward with the residential rental
Today,
permit.
only today.
As presented?
Yes.
At this time,
At
yes,
this point in
ma'am.
time. I like it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I happen to
Not
agree.
really.
And we need some other things to happen before we get there.
Okay, so we put that on simmer or hold until we then go into the code enforcement process and we get more aggressive. And quite honestly, you know, that message I'm hearing from you is for us to get very, I'll call it very aggressive
Yes.
on the process. And so rather than allowing these folks to, you know, give them more time, so you all need to be prepared to get those phone calls from the folks we're not giving more time
Well,
to.
that's
Right.
okay.
Right.
And to that end, you know, we will also look at some of the points that Commissioner Turner brought up to see if there's something that we can also be more aggressive on as well. For example, going for the warrant to be able, from the judge to be able to go on to properties that we currently can't go on unless we get that from him, to remove certain items from somebody's property that is, you know, either living there or they don't meet the other violations that we can
Okay.
enter on the property.
Margaret, one other question. What happens when you condemn it?
Pardon me?
What happens when you condemn a property?
Well,
That's
wanna
the
go through?
unsafe structure. Mark will condemn one if it's structurally unsound, and then we have a process in our ordinance that allows us to go in, but we have to send first notification to the owner, post the property for, I believe it's 60 days. We have to get a title search, find out if there's any interested parties, then we have to post it an additional 60 days, and then if there's still no response from anyone, no one's interested, then we're able to go in and tear it down and
So
invoice
that
them.
would be about 5 months. Okay.
Not a short
Roughly, yeah.
process. Mr. Chapman?
Mr. Chair, if I might, just because we are going into overtime on this issue, is since we do have a right-about schedule with Commissioner Turner, and there seems to be some brain teaser code enforcement type scenarios that we've identified tonight, why don't we, as staff, take those case examples that we come up with on Thursday? Let's put some tough ones in front of this group. Let us work on some potential solutions with those case studies, bring them back to the board with some timelines in it so that's a real apple-to-apple comparison about the conundrum that's being faced. And then add it to, we have a 2-hour special meeting scheduled on August 1st to deal with the special meeting budget workshop. We can bring some of those case scenarios to you as a part of that discussion, because I don't think that budget workshop is going to take 2
What time
hours.
is it?
Is that okay,
It's
Tom?
3 to 5
Huh? 3 to 5.
p.m. to 5 p.m. on
Unless
Monday,
you wanna
August 1st.
make it-
Or we could tag it to the August 8th meeting that we have scheduled, also a budget workshop, 3:30 to 5.
It's too late to change it to 2, right?
No,
we
it's
still
not been
have time
advertised yet.
to do that.
I'd like to change it to 2,
Change it to 2.
and then if we get done early, we can just, you know, have, you know. And then
Everyone okay
assemblies,
with
the only thing I would ask, and I don't know if y'all would be receptive to this, is maybe asking your code enforcement officers, you know, pick 5 for each district, you know, and, because I bet, I'm going to make an assumption that there's probably 3 to 5 blights that are located in each district throughout the county that it would show an example of, you know, they're going to be different than what's in this one and what's in District 1 versus District 5 and so on and so forth. And it gives us a breadth of all the different scenarios that could arise and how we want to go about. And then let's put a bullseye on those, and let's try to tackle 25 issues and see what we can do to look at the flow chart and really allow us to be educated to the nth degree on it.
Well, if you're asking us to do 5 per district, we're going to need more time besides August, beyond August.
You're saying
1st.
No, just identify.
Right, just identify.
Okay.
Just identify.
Identify.
No, there's no way. No, I
No,
understand.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not going through the
Ideally
process,
easy.
but, all right,
Then
well,
we can discuss the process
we'll
and the flow.
work on
That's easy.
Is
coming
it
up with
is it
examples.
illegal? Is it illegal, Ms. Emblidge, for, I mean, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Is that inappropriate or illegal for us to, because I mean,
I don't know.
I almost brought you all a couple pictures, but I don't want to
Right.
be that guy that, you know, look at this guy. You know, I ain't doing that. I'll send that to Charles,
The
you know.
ordinances
I'll be that guy.
state that the code enforcement officer has to have firsthand knowledge of the violation. We have to see it occurring with our own eyes before we can issue. That's Florida statutes.
They can take the picture.
Right, we can take the pictures, but we can't take someone else's picture and then say you've got a violation
Okay.
because of this
They
picture.
can
I
do
see.
it.
I
We
see.
have to, it's just like a police officer
Yeah.
type situation. We
Today's
have
the
to-
11th. Would it be asking too much for us to have a ride around with each commissioner and let them have 3 to 5 pictures that they say this is something I'd love to see addressed in the 2017 remainder calendar? Is that possible?
In the 2017 remainder count, that's
Yeah.
absolutely doable.
That's possible. I was
Okay.
just hoping it wasn't.
By
between
August,
now and
August 2nd.
1st.
I would-
No,
Well
just
done.
Everything by August 2nd.
But 15 to 25 pictures between now and August 1st, Ms. English.
That would be doable.
So because I mean I think that gives us an idea of where we're at.
Oh, we can do that tomorrow.
You can do that.
All right.
Ms. Emmons,
So-
do you have anything else you need to?
Well, I just want to say that the August 1st date is what I just want to confirm that that's where we want to bring these 15 back.
Either August 1st or August 8th. We can add time on to either one. I do know we have staff vacations that are planned that we need to take into consideration with all of that, but it's up to the board.
Let's go 8th.
The 8th
Again.
better, Ms. English? Is the 8th better? Okay, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
And then Ms. English, Mr. Chair, all I'm hoping is that, when you hit that button and picture 1 comes up, you now apply flow chart discussion to that and step us through what is possible. And then, Mark, you let us know if there's anything that we can do that can tweak that process.
And we may, can we invite Judge Cup or anyone to come be a part of it as well? Is that necessary at this point?
I
No.
don't
No,
think
he's got a
so.
rule on it, so it's better that he not be
Oh,
involved.
It
okay.
needs to stay separate.
He don't want
He ain't gonna come. He won't.
August 8th is starting when? At 2?
If it's going to be of his
2
house,
p.m.
we don't.
Yeah.
Two, okay,
August 8th.
August 8th at 2 o'clock.
yes.
August 8th at 2.
And
Okay.
leave the August 1st at 3.
3 to 5 till
5 p.m.
Very good.
How much time will we have on August 8th? I just
Like
want to
an
make
hour and
sure
a half?
we.
I believe we'll split it between the two. We'll let you guys have first half. I mean, our intention for that workshop was to discuss the constitutionals budget, which never really takes more than about 45 minutes, so.
So we'd have
we
an
can
hour.
most of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Emmons. I know there's a lot of work went into this. We appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? Workshop stands adjourned. Does anyone need a stretch break?
Yeah.
We'll take a 5-minute stretch break before we begin the BOCC meeting.
Right. Yeah, I know. I know. Big advantage.
Right here.
Which one?
What date do I need to put on?
That's been pulled. Okay. Come to the August meeting. Okay.